All set? Board of Selectmen meeting of November 3rd. Call the meeting to order at 6:20. And if everybody would join us to say the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We can do the warrants after, huh? Should we get,
Yeah, absolutely, sure, we can always do that.
Mrs. Steele is here to request speed limit changes and signage on Main Street. Mrs. Steele, you want to speak?
We have,
Thank you.
thank you. Now, do I speak from where I was sitting?
You can come to one of the
Bat
mics
around
if you wish.
Want to sit down?
No, that's not.
Yeah, you can raise it up too if you want.
What do you want me to do, Tracy? Can you hear me okay right like this? That's fine.
Good.
I have contacted the Commonwealth Department of Transportation, but they also told me that it would be a good idea if the town supported this, for the town to contact them as well, to request, two requests. One is for additional signage on Main Street traveling west to highlight the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Currently, if you're heading into town down Route 97, there are 4 oversized signs within a third of a mile stating a speed limit change is ahead, strictly enforced, etc. Coming in to the center of town on Main Street, there's one very small sign across from Perry Park. I've lived here for a number of years, and I didn't even know what the speed limit was. You know, when you're driving in right in front of the library, and there's the flashing sign that says your speed is.
Right.
And for a long time, I've wondered, well, what should my speed be? Because it isn't clearly marked. It is the scene of accidents. I don't want to overstate it, but there was quite a serious accident not that long ago, about a month or so ago. There's also old homes that are right on the street. Also, I would request that the town consider extending, or have the town request the DOT to extend the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit out to the police station. One of my concerns is that, of course, there's a lot of traffic in this area because of the town facilities, as well as the library, and the Pines, which is going to be hopefully refinished soon with a lot more children, bicycles, a lot more family travel, animals, etc. So I've done just a brief statement about the signage, and then there's just 2 maps, one showing the difference between coming into town on 97 and the other coming into town on 113, and the difference in the signage. So thank you for hearing me. I do have a neighbor who is here supporting.
Hello,
And,
Mrs. Monteunis. Oh,
Basically, I'm in the same,
neighborhood.
the other neighborhood, I can see it, and with the traffic, the town has grown, it's grown significantly. I've been here a while,
Yeah.
but it's getting to the point, if you're going 20, if you know it's 25, you will inch up to 30.
Absolutely.
If it's 35, and I never even, again, how long have I been here? I never realized that it was licensed. I always thought it was 25 till you got to town hall.
Sure.
But it is very serious between the buses, the kids. This is an old historic district up until you get past, thanks, up until you get past, pretty much past town hall.
Exactly.
And I do
It has
think
changed dramatically in a short
The
time.
traffic is incredible. It's bad enough on King Street because they try and avoid the square.
Of course they do.
They're not, if they're not familiar, at least they're not heading down Union Street anymore. That was brutal for many, many years. But it is a very deep concern, and I think it's very dangerous right about now. I can imagine what this summer's gonna bring.
Especially with
The
everybody
Pines the way it
using
is
the
now,
Pines.
and it's like, all of our kids have grown, so we had a little lull.
Right, we do.
They're back.
Their kids are back.
They're back, and they brought their kids. And there are there's a lot of activity, a lot of walking. And again, I reiterate that it is part of the historic part of town, and I would love to see it really extend the 25 mile an hour up past, at least past Town Hall. And then coming in, more of a sign to specify that it is 25. You hit Savory's or Goret's house, it's 40. They're still coming down the hill,
Exactly,
you know?
exactly.
Um,
You're right.
But if we could,
Look
try
into
and
that and see
do
what we
something.
could do.
Anybody know, what is the official speed limit on the bridge itself? Does anybody know?
I don't know, but I would concur with them also. I live on Elm Park.
and Brian was an elm.
30, I think I may have seen a sign that says 30 on the bridge, but.
When you put the lighted sign out here, I
Every-
wondered what the speed limit was.
I've lived here, I
you
did
know,
the same thing, it's like, what is the speed limit?
It was that recent accident that really made me say, maybe we should just
Should
bring it to
address
the
this.
attention of the town and see
I-
if you feel that it has merit. So thank you.
I think too with the bridge and the lights,
Sure.
if they were more than timed, but people are coming across the bridge, they wanna make the light,
They do.
they wanna make that light, I don't know where they're going, but they wanna make the light.
Well, if we have a 25 mile an hour from the library, this complex until the bridge, that would be very consistent with what we did on the other side on 97, which is 25 miles an hour from Gardner Street.
Well, it's coming down the hill, the minute you
Coming
hit the
down the
top of the
hill.
hill,
Oh, the
there's
design-
three
Top of the
signs,
hill.
the minute you hit the top of the hill.
I mean, 25 miles an hour is it's consistent. So I guess what you've asked also is that we quote-unquote petition the state. So Denise, do you have any idea?
I just
Should we
used
be
the-
calling them, or do we send them a letter? Any clue how we can alert them that we have a desire to
Look into this.
reconfigure,
The
the
signage.
speed limit?
Don't we think we should run this by our police as well?
Well, we will, but I'm just asking the question about, asking.
A lot of times, the kids are parked out here.
I think it should be.
And by the time they get up here, they are going 35 and 40, which is
Right.
within it,
So-
But not right down,
So right now, down by the church, it's already 25.
no, it's not,
No,
it
it's
changes.
It's past the church. If you
Beyond the
look on-
church.
If you look on the map, the
Yeah.
third page,
Yep.
the church, as you see, going from the upper right to the lower left, is traveling west on Main Street.
Yeah, I see the 25 small, it says 25 small.
Yes, that's actually past the church.
Okay, so that's King Street, basically.
No, it's down the end of King Street. You know the park that's at the end
Yeah,
of King Street?
exactly.
It's
Harry
by the first houses.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
but what I'm getting at, in that area, it's already 25.
That's where it starts.
Right, and then it gets up to about where the pines are, it goes to 35?
No, it's,
No, it's changed,
It
if you're going
changes
the
right there.
opposite way, it's
you'd
35
have to look, I
there.
thought it was 25 all the way up.
If you're
It's
at the
not.
end of King Street,
Yep.
it's 35.
Oh, it's 35.
If
So what
you-
you're proposing here in this box is what you're proposing?
No, this is what it says right now.
Right now, right here, it says 25, right here, this is King Street, I believe, isn't it? No? Down below King
So
Street.
if you're traveling
bridge.
west,
Yep,
and you come down and the church is here,
yep,
and this is where the park is.
And
right
I-
That's
here.
not why I'm
Yeah.
here.
Right
but I'm
here,
glad
if
It
you're
was
going
like I
that
was
way, it's
looking.
25, if you're coming
And
this
it's
way,
right
it
by-
changes to
okay,
35.
so down here is what
I think this is
It's right by
35.
the parking
Okay.
lot, right back where the
so
one
right
is.
here, this one here,
It's 20,
this is Union Street.
25.
No, that little
And
one
it
is
changes
changed.
from 25
Chestnut.
up
So it's
to
25 already at Chestnut,
It's 25
It's
from the
underneath.
square
up to this point,
to there,
then it changes.
and then I think it's 25 to there.
Okay,
I think, but the
right.
police would know the best.
So we're only asking we're only
It
really
changes to
asking a small
35.
section.
And if you
should
look
stay
on the other
25
map,
from the
what's
beginning of-
interesting is that inside a third of a mile,
I agree, I didn't come here for that, but I totally agree with you.
small sign is there.
Because I wonder why they put the flashing sign in, because.
But, okay, so,
And that's it, because it's.
yeah, I don't see a
35.
problem making it 25 from the bridge up. I don't see a problem with that.
If we have to return to the
I
state.
understand,
Yeah,
I understand that.
exactly.
and I just
No,
have- I definitely think that the police
it's
should be-
so congested, it should be.
And that's just the signage.
And it,
So that's what we-
Generations
I
Right.
think that's what the actual
well,
speed
Brian Brian's across the street, right, he didn't go far.
Right, so if we went in.
And the kids will get the school bus out here.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're all excited about it. I have a question on the floor. Denise,
Well, I would suggest
This is a good
to,
idea.
speak to the police department, and
Yeah.
then perhaps at your next meeting, come back. If you support it, then I would suggest writing a letter to the DOT and follow it up with a phone call.
All right.
But you should put a letter that it's an official vote of the board, and that's what the board would like to see happen, and support, Ms. Steele's recommendation.
And Mrs.
all right, so
Monteюnis.
can I call the police department on behalf of the board and ask them and get an opinion, or how shall I do that? What's your
Write him a
thought?
letter.
I can
I
reach
think
out.
we should, I'd like Denise to reach out with a phone call, followed with a letter, and get their input. And I'm sure they're probably going to be in agreement.
I'm sure.
And then we'll reach out to the state at DOT, the,
With a letter.
In writing as well.
Well, you would need to actually vote if you're gonna support this, I would say at your
Right.
next meeting.
Right.
okay. And I believe that we were all in agreement that would be the right thing to do.
You have consensus on that to support
Right.
your idea. Very nice job.
So it's,
Well done.
it's government, so it doesn't,
I was
move
talking to
quickly.
Brian too, basically, you know, they'd have to do a survey to see what the traffic
they
is.
would, but
And, you know, I know all the
exactly.
ramifications.
Yeah, he
but
knows
it-
all
yeah.
that business, yeah,
I
he
said,
does.
oh, he goes, it ain't that easy.
Okay, so to recap, Denise, we're going to put it in writing. I'll ask Nancy, actually, I'm gonna ask now for the November 17th meeting, that this should be an agenda item so we can vote on it. Between now and then, we'll get input from the police department, whatever way they wanna deliver it, I'm assuming they'll do it in writing. And then, after November 17th, if we vote on it, then we'll go ahead and we'll ask Nancy to send out a letter, or Denise to
We'll ask
word the
Denise to
letter.
send out a letter, because Nancy's got a lot of the work she's catching up on.
So we'll have a letter sent by either to the state requesting that the reconfiguration be done.
It'd be terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit, but
Yeah, I'm sure
It's-
they're gonna
it's
do a
out
road
there.
study
That's the
and
important
all
thing, we've
that.
started.
between the selectmen,
Thought it'll never happen.
That's it.
that's right, you have to begin.
We move at the speed of
No,
government.
thank you
I
for bringing it to our attention
Watching
before
ice melt.
something, I know you've had a bad accident out there, but we don't need any more.
No,
And we,
Thank goodness.
and then we have the, I see kids waiting there in the morning,
yeah, there's the whole new, like I
right?
said, there's a
And
whole new.
sometimes they walk across the street and it's a
Well,
curve.
They live right there, and
Sure.
now, I mean,
They're
in that
comfortable there,
area, they
but-
play in the park.
Right,
And, yeah, we do have the crosswalk over here. I'd like to see one right in front, but
right.
again, we have grown so much, and
Right, we
until
have.
you really start looking at it, you go, oh my goodness.
Right, it's all, you
We
turn
have-
around and it's a whole bunch of people
I wanted to-
driving and
It
walking.
was a
and-
few years ago, we had a police chief car get totaled out there with the chief in it.
Mm.
I remember that.
When was that?
That was Bill Sargent.
Bill
Billy, yeah.
Sargent got rear-ended out here.
Total bit through the
Yeah, it's quite a while ago, I know,
It was a
but
while, yeah.
I'm old too.
Why not?
Well, did they have a bridge back then? Did they have a bridge back then?
We had a
Oh,
bridge.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, we've had several, we've had several.
I'm just joking. I just wanted to say one thing. Inez actually contacted me, and I'm very proud that she did such a great job in implementing our new policy on how a public member can add an agenda item. Without going through the policy again, she went through the process, and she went, of course, the extra step of actually doing a great
Excellent job.
proposal, and then even doing the homework in advance by reaching out to the state. So you did a great job, great example on how the public can engage with us using
I have
our,
a consulting fee if anyone else.
that's fine.
Send it to Joe.
Sounds like you deserve one.
Let me shut off the microphone on that part. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thanks.
Good night, everybody. See you
How's
later.
hockey?
It's there, I saw Eric the other night,
You did?
but he's down lower than Quanah, so they
He is,
don't
he's
yet-
another group,
They
yeah.
finally caught up
Yeah.
with him and said, you're too young.
So
See you
that's-
later.
So Denise, will you record that as an agenda item request
Yes, I
for
will.
us? Thank you. I'm keeping the minutes, just so that, for disclosure tonight, I'm going to keep the minutes of this meeting as I did last, so.
And it's the Latham family. Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
My name is Betsy Latham, my husband is Doug Latham. I believe he sent you a letter, which you should have received already.
Yes, we have that.
This is my sister-in-law, Maria Latham, who is the other co-trustee of the Latham Family Realty Trust, which owns the land down on Center Street. You can see as you come around from Rollins Street
Yes.
onto Center Street,
Yes.
the big fields, that's them.
Beautiful land.
And the trust has that land in 61A. My husband spends much time on a tractor, making hay. Maria helps him with that. And what we would like to do, our house is at the very top of the hill. If you look up that hill, you can see our
This
house.
is the very end of Briscoe,
Very end, it's technically the very end of Briscoe, yes, 23
Okay.
Briscoe Road.
all right.
And what we would like to do is we want to build a barn to hold some of this equipment. We're running out of space. But in order to do that, we really need more land to the side as opposed to in the front.
Okay.
And what we would like to do is swap what is listed as parcel A, which belongs to us, with parcel B, which is on the side and currently belongs to the trust.
Okay.
They are equivalent. We did have a survey done. The planning board has looked at this. They're all fine with it. They are approximately the same square footage. We fully intend that once we make that switch, that what is now parcel A will also go into 61A.
Okay.
We have no reason to do anything differently with it. And then we'd be able to put the barn up to the side of our house, and that would house some of the equipment that we do use on the land. And because parcel B is currently under 61A, technically, the town has right of first refusal when we are selling any land. And so what we are here to ask is that you waive your right of first refusal
Right.
so that we can file that. We need a letter, so we can file that with the deed when we make the transfer, and then we can basically flip the two pieces of land.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. It is beautiful land. I was out there for the Christmas tree opening last winter.
Yeah, that's my brother-in-law.
Yeah,
Right on Wood Street.
On
Yeah,
Wood
that's
Street,
our
yeah.
on
other
a cold day.
Ooh, yeah.
piece. It was cold.
And my husband also does the fields behind Nichols Village.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that we can open up the discussion. I would like to make a motion that the town waives its option to purchase parcel B under GL Chapter 61A. The town of Groveland has the first refusal option to purchase, so we're going to waive that. That's my motion.
Do I have a second on the,
Second him.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Joe, did you have some other questions?
Yeah, also because I'm taking minutes, I wanted to bring the map to you and just show me specifically where the barn is going. Oh, okay.
Here's our garden, our house.
Yes.
So the barn is just going right here.
All right, where is Center Street on this map?
Down here,
Down here, okay, that's down there.
down here, this is the end of Bristol
Oh, this is
Road,
the end of, oh, okay, there you go, there's my,
and there's where the barn is going, proposed barn is right here.
okay. So the issuing authority for the permit of the barn is the planning board? Because you've secured what from them? Did you get a permit, or did you
Wait,
get
no,
the
we
okay? or-
haven't, they just need to tell us that we can do
That you can do
this,
it?
which they did.
Okay, so you're gonna approach them for the permit?
Yes, right
Okay.
when it's time to do that. we will get a
It'd be the
permit
building inspector.
and the building inspector.
Of
We'll
course,
go
and the
through that
building
whole-
inspector,
We'll
of
go
course,
through that
yeah.
whole thing, but
Okay, great.
we just not needed their okay to do this, because this will, sort of, this lot line, would change.
Sure.
And this lot,
Sure.
and we wanted to make sure they were okay with it, and they have signed off on that, and we do have all their signatures.
Okay, good.
That's good.
That's good. That's very helpful to me,
very-
thank you.
Basically, your next step would be the building inspector, really.
Next step would be to get the plan finalized.
Yeah,
And then the building inspector, yes, yes.
very good.
Well
So,
done. Thank you.
So I have the letter you can sign, and we'll
Okay.
have it notarized, and we'll send it out to you.
Okay.
We'll have it notarized tomorrow.
Terrific, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Sure,
Thank you,
Thank you.
Betsy and Maria, thank you so much. We'll get the notarized, correct, okay. We have beautiful land.
Yeah,
Would you like me to do some of my report while we're waiting? Because I think the next agenda item is 7.
that would be fine.
Michael Wood at 7, sure, that would be great, thank you.
Okay, so the first item we were just going to follow up on is the recreation management plan. We had discussed several months ago at a meeting, my concerns with recreation and the way it's being, and this is no criticism to the Recreation Committee, just the way that the town has sort of stepped back on recreation matters. So at the time, and I do have, if anyone wants it again, I did print out my original plan,
Is that from May 5th?
probably.
Yeah, I need to look at that if you.
More. So at the time, I had said, you know, there are really 2 options that the board should really look at. One would be keeping the appointed committee and changing everything to fall within the purview of the law. Currently, they collect their own fees, they set their own fees. Those should be under the care, custody, and control of the treasurer, myself. The board should be setting fees for permit use and field use.
The board being the Board of Selectmen.
Correct, the Board of Selectmen. Their vendors should be paid by the town of Groveland. They should be receiving 1099 for any work that's being done. So my recommendation, if we go that route, would be to ask town meeting to set up a revolving fund where we would have a fund maintain the fields and anything related to recreation. Permit fees would be set, field use fees would be set. With that, we would then maintain the fields, line the fields, pay for required updates to the fields. And then hopefully we would have funds available in that we could then hire a recreation coordinator who would actually handle all that. They would be the go-to person in-house to deal with the scheduling and the maintenance issues and the fees and the permits. And and then the Recreation Committee would be sort of the board overseeing that, helping figure out what sporting events we want to bring to town, what community events we want to see happen, what the best use of the coordinator would be, whether it's running pottery classes or music on town hall lawn in the summer, things like that. So I think we could expand what recreation actually covers by taking this route. The second option would have been, or would be, to disband the appointed committee, allow the recreation group as they are to continue to function, just separate from the town. They can do everything they're currently doing, only the town would set a permit fee that we would charge them to use and rent our fields. I think what I would like to do, I've actually spoken with Pam from Recreation. She understands the goal, that it's not a slight towards them. We're not looking to take things away from them. We just need to make things correct. So I would like to sit with her and other members of Recreation and come to figure out exactly who they're permitting, what their fees are, come up with some recommendation that I could then come back to the board and say, you know, this makes the most sense. I am really leaning towards keeping the appointed committee and just making it fall under the legal purview. But that would be my plan that I would propose to you.
My recommendation would be to keep the appointed committee as well and follow through. We have, as you know, we've got some pretty dedicated people. We want to keep them on the job as much as possible, doing what they continue to do. That's bring great recreation management to our town. So if we can get a little bit more compliant on the applicable laws, especially when it comes to the handling of money, that's really the big issue. And it's not because the money's been mishandled, it's just that we've not been compliant.
Correct.
And there hasn't been any, oversight from, the Board of Selectmen to enforce those laws, so that's my feeling. But, I think your approach is really good, because you're going to, present that to Pam as well, and so I think it's a good process as well. If you come back and say, after speaking with Pam and the recreation folks, and they feel they should be disbanded, we use the second column, Well, I'll probably support that as well, but I am definitely leaning towards keeping the appointed committee as is and getting them aligned properly with the applicable laws, especially in the area of handling money, so, well done.
I'm in favor of keeping the appointed committee. And I also would be leaning probably toward down the road, as our parks and recs grow, try to bring someone in-house to manage it, manage the, the game times and all that other fields and the mowing and the maintenance. But at this point, I don't think we're ready to disband. We need the people, we need their volunteerism. And I agree, I think the money should be taken and given to the town and managed through the town books and the 1099s and the business end of it. I agree 100% on that. So I'm on favor of the appointed committee.
And I will just say that whatever we decide, we're looking at a July 1 start. Because we
New
would have to
fiscal
fall in
year.
line with the budget town meeting. So yes, we're looking at next fiscal year. So we do have plenty of time to iron out all the kinks, figure out, like I said, I don't even know what type of sports they cover or what fees they're charging. We need to really figure that out and figure out our cost of maintaining the fields.
I think in due respect to the committees that are out there, I think in due respect, like you said, is have you meet with the representatives, the champ people, whatever it is, and meet with them and go through that all. We don't need to be in the nitty-gritty of that, and I think it can be handled pretty well that way. I think it's a good idea.
Very nice.
You know, you mentioned past boards. I think what happened, we started to grow, just as these ladies said, the town has grown. We sat in there, we all knew one another, we knew all the baseball people, we knew the softball people, and, you know, you did the best you could. And as it got bigger and bigger, we said, you know, we were getting complaints, the fields aren't mowed, sprinkler heads are broken, pipes are broken. And everybody was trying to do like double and triple duty. And somehow we always said, we'll send Bobby down there. He could be working on 97, putting in a new road, and we're expecting him to show up to fix something. The people on these boards have done a tremendous job. I mean, people come to those fields and watch the kids playing, the girls' teams, the boys' teams, the high school teams, everybody raves about how beautiful the fields are. And even Washington Park, you know, they need some tender loving care over there, but people come from Somerville, you know, when they have interleague play, and they're thrilled with the fields that we have. So, you know, Bill says maybe we should wait to hire a director. I think we need to think about hiring a director sooner rather than later, because this job's gonna fall on us very soon, because everybody's going to be, the new year will be here before we know it. Everybody will be looking for space for games, and they're going to be looking to us for guidance. And I think, you know, we have been fortunate how things have worked out. But now, as we're bigger and better, we need more oversight on where funding is and if we're doing it the right way, and we don't want to be in hot water with any agencies in the Commonwealth. And Denise, thank you for putting this together. You did a great job. And I love the idea that you and Pam have spoken and others can come in and sit with you. And I'm sure it's going to work well, and we'll all be very pleased. Thank you.
I have a question. Does the Pines fall under the jurisdiction of the Recreation Committee?
Well, that's part of the problem, is the Recreation Committee has sort of morphed into a youth sports that really oversees other fields, not the Pines. In addition, in speaking with Pam, my goal, as I've expressed to the board, is I feel that recreation should be not just sports, it should be community as well. She said at one point they were community, they had community events, but due to funding and things like that, they sort of swayed away from it because they weren't making money off community events. So this recreation, in my opinion, should encompass all of the fields, all of the sports that the town currently oversees or recreation currently oversees, and then starting to filter in community events, like I said, movie night or band night or ice cream socials, things like that, that gets the community out, walking around the town, gets them together, so that it's not just a town meeting, not just on election day, that people actually have a reason to come out and socialize for a town-sponsored event.
On the Groveland Youth Soccer, Shanahan Field is town-owned, obviously. Would their role change if we, let's say we adopted keeping the appointed committee as is? Would their role change in any way? Would it be impacted?
Yes, so one of the problems that we've had in this town is, and again, I understand the reason behind it.
How it happened.
But, you know, taking Shanahan Field, for example, youth soccer has paid to put in a concession stand. They have paid to put in underground sprinklers. The town does not own those, but we own the physical field and land that it's on. The insurance company has questioned us on what happens if someone trips on a sprinkler head? What happens if someone trips coming out of the concession stand? Technically, it should be their liability policy because they own that structure.
But they don't have the liability.
And those are gonna be some problems, is, what should have happened is, if they wanted to pay to put sprinklers, they should have put them in and then donated them to the town and said, we've put these in. Because they currently own, and the same as at Washington Park, there are other groups that own things on town property. That's something that we need to work out with legal counsel to figure out how best to handle those.
Okay.
Concession stands under the law are required to be put out to bid. They're required, this very specific Mass General law on how concession stands are run and managed. Those are not being put out to bid. Again, we don't own that structure, so those are things that we will have to work out in whatever plan we put forward, regardless of which way we go.
If it's possible, can you let us know either November 17th meeting or December 1st meeting, what council says about that?
Yes.
Whether we may have to do some kind of unwinding to
Yes.
restructure things. And to the credit of the folks at Groveland Youth Soccer, for example, which I'm familiar with because I was coaching in soccer for many years, there was a bit of a, a void, and they filled it. They basically had a wonderful vision for bringing good programs and quality of life issues to the forefront, and they, continue to do good work and deliver on those. But in the absence of leadership, if you will, or direction, they basically took it upon themselves to some degree to put some of the things that are in place now, and we may have to unwind some of those.
Right, and unfortunately.
That's a concern I have.
And again, with Shanahan, there was advertising banners on those fences. The fences that the town owns, we're not making money off the advertising. So it's things like that that we need to just make sure it's being done correctly where it's town-owned land.
So do you agree, Betty and Bill, that maybe we should get a report on that sooner rather than later?
Oh, absolutely. And Joe, when you talk about Groveland Youth Soccer, it's the same commitment that Groveland Baseball made at Washington Park.
Yeah, see,
It's
I
the
don't
same
know the
commitment.
history there.
My brothers played there, my sons played there, my grandson's playing there.
Sure.
And it's always been, the camaraderie of working together, just as soccer does.
Which I don't think that should be taken away either, but like Denise says, I think we can keep that camaraderie going and be able to get it running like a business as it should.
Correct, and,
And-
right, it has been a valiant effort by all groups,
Right.
and I'm not taking that away from
No,
them, because the
not
fields
at
do
all.
look beautiful,
Of course
but
They're
they are
beautiful.
still
Everybody wants
town-owned
them.
land, and by right, the Board of Selectmen oversees that. And some of these things don't have Board of Selectmen approval that's happened, or they're not under your care, like I said, the sprinklers, they're not under the care, custody, and control of the town, and if someone were to trip, but it's our land, it becomes this sort of issue with whose insurance and what's covered and who's
Scary.
covering it, and,
And today, everybody, is,
So baseball,
they
same
fall
in?
down, they're looking to get
I have,
compensated.
other than my children being in the program for 7 years, but baseball has the same type of issues, that there are things that they own on our land.
correct,
And not only that, the down the pines, you have the softball,
correct.
and that's the same thing. They
Right.
put money in down there, so that's coming online maybe middle and end of next year, that will be done. So, I mean, I think you're bringing in 4 more fields down there, or 3 more fields. The pitch is getting bigger and bigger. So I think now's the time to get it. We have all winter to work on. I think now is definitely the time to do it.
Dan Stewart has softball down there with the girls. I think those girls have won many championships. Pam goes down there with the girls. And, I hate to start referring to people, but I know a lot of people. It is, quite a collaboration of people.
Right, and then it gets to the point, there are some sheds down there that we had locks on that were cut off,
I know.
and people put other locks on, and again, it's town property, and they, just because it's been used and cared for by groups, they're taking ownership of it,
People
and we
get-
just have to be careful that
And-
either we're selling the land to people and they can do whatever they want, or we need to make sure it's
That we have,
done
we
correctly.
have a management program for it.
Correct.
One thing that I was involved in years ago, I was involved in the activities committee and I ran 2 parades, which that doesn't get done anymore because we don't have the volunteers anymore, which, like you said a minute ago, the more you can involve the town people and they feel like they belong to a town, and we have Groveland Day once a year, but I think if this gets put together right, I think it definitely is gonna incorporate the town people to feel like they're more involved and what have you. So we're not really snubbing the people out, we're just kind of reconfiguring it.
Right, and we're looking to expand, to
Right,
cover, you
right.
know, that if we
Right.
have a well-run recreation with a revolving account, there could be money, or even at that point, if the town's not funding certain things, you know, the field maintenance, we could take $2,000 and put it aside for parade, that then recreation would work on getting bands and, you know, things like that. I think we need to expand
Parade
it.
was fun, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just to cover all residents, and again, I'm not saying anything about youth sports, but
No, no.
the town is more than just youth sports. We should be getting out to as many residents as we
Well,
can with events.
We had a proposal last week come before us, about the, playground equipment down there. And they're looking to try and get that, you know, equipment replaced. This is one avenue, if this was put in place, we could help them do. So right now, they're gonna probably go to CPA money, whatever, they're gonna try and do what they can do. But we really should have been managing that property a long time ago so that it
Correct.
wouldn't get in disarray and we wouldn't be trying to do what we're doing. So I definitely think it's a good program to get on. Every town around here does it, and every town around here has their own rec committee that manages their fields, and I think it's due time we get there.
When Bill Dark was on this board, and we first started with the Pines Rec area and removing the material and putting fields in, and a lot of activity down there. And he said it many, many times, he wanted a hat show, so there could be a concert there along the river. Wouldn't it be a beautiful spot?
It would be.
And, or movie night, you said movie night, that would be fun.
Or there's a gazebo that's not used, you know, you could have a band at the gazebo and have people gather there and then
Absolutely.
visit the local shops or the
We could have a
restaurants down
Christmas
there.
stroll or something downtown.
Yep.
And we have the seniors, Groveland Housing Authority, they'd love to walk over and enjoy these things, down at the Pines area.
So that's my plan will be to come back with after working with recreation to figure out what's best and how we're going to expand recreation and how we're going to incorporate a part-time to full-time position depending on what's actually needed.
Okay,
Very
so
good.
one more time on the Recreation Committee. Will they have jurisdiction over the Pines, yes or no, in your opinion?
Yes,
They will.
yes.
Okay, that's all I need.
What do you mean by jurisdiction?
It will be involved with them.
Will they be
Yes.
involved with managing those fields?
Right.
Okay,
Appropriating funds to maintain them?
Yes.
You know,
we're not
Everything
trying to
will flow
displace
to the
them.
Recreation Committee
Because right now it's being
Yeah,
managed.
everything would flow through the recreation person.
person,
The
right?
recreation committee would be an advisory board.
Got it, there you
You
go.
know,
To
the Board of
the-
Selectmen would still have to approve permits and things of
Okay,
that
good.
nature, but
That's what I
it would
thought.
all filter through a recreation department.
Okay.
And recreation
goal.
right now, pretty much is managing those fields at the Pines now, aren't they?
No.
No.
So recreation currently doesn't do anything at the Pines. They're like
That's the Pines.
Shanahan. We do.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're gonna expand that. Okay, good, that's very helpful, thank you.
good job,
Good
thank
job.
you.
Okay.
Thank you both,
Um,
good ideas.
So the next one would be,
Can I interrupt just for a
Sure.
second? Because I've just got a quickie and then I'll be out of here. I don't want to be a pest. And I know I'm not on the agenda, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Can you
My
identify?
concern is Elm Park, specifically the telephone department, Verizon, has a line going through the end of Elm Park toward the river. That is an issue at this point, and it's going to be much more concerned as time goes on. It is now, the telephone line is now in a tent because the tree has grown. It's picking the wire up, and if you look at if you stand in the lower park, if you will, where the parking area is, and look at the tree, you'll see the line goes up and then it comes down when it gets to the other side of the park. There are pipes that are underground from the pole to the pole at John Val's that have been put in years ago to do that. This has been a long contentious problem with the town. Greg knew it before you were here. Verizon doesn't want to spend the money to do it. There's also poles down the other side of the street. If they want to just run a new line down that side, fine. If they go and trim those trees it's gonna look like the devil. You know, we keep the light department wires clear, and it makes a big hole in trees. I've got an example in front of my house, there's 2 of them. I don't have any problem with them trimming those, but I think it would spoil the end of the park as you come off the bridge to see a big hole in that tree. And I think you need to put that in writing to Verizon with a copy to somebody else. So the tree man, you know, Mark McCabe of the tree department or Bobby of the highway, so nobody gets allowed to trim that tree. Because when they go through, they make a big hole. They don't just for the wire, they're just gonna cut out a chunk so the tree can grow, and I'd like to see something done and hold up any other permits they come for pole settings as the leverage maybe to get it done. We went through this years ago when they did over Elm Park. They had double poles in Elm Park, and it was all swapped over except for Verizon. And when I finally wrote a letter to the selectmen, I came to a meeting, and then I wrote a letter to Verizon also, and then I came at the next time they had posted for a pole relocation, and the woman was here for the permit. That's how it happened, that they took the poles out shortly thereafter. Maybe it was a few weeks, but they did it. And I'd like to see that done again, and as I say, coming from the corporate world, if you put it in writing, put a copy to someone, they can't say they never got it. You know, oh, we didn't know that.
One of my suggestions would be, first of all, is to write the tree warden and ask him not to do any pruning and bring it to his attention about the wire. That would kind of stop any tree pruning. Find out who the property owner is of the wire on one side of the road and see if we can notify the owner of where that wire is coming from. Tell them if they can try and call Verizon, and then maybe we can call Verizon. I mean, it's only bothering us because it's bothering our tree. So that's the only say we have. We can't say because it's on his building, we only can talk about the tree.
I think Kermit's point was, when they come to us for permission or a permit to do some work, we certainly can say, by the way, this has been left
They don't
undone.
wanna do it because they don't wanna spend the money, and I understand that.
Well, now, is
But
the
the-
conduit in the ground already? They don't
Yes,
have to
it's
do any-
already in the
They don't have
ground.
to dig up the ground at all. There's
No,
access to
no.
the
And,
conduit.
and what brought it to my mind, or attention, was, they had the power outage where we had to shut the power down in the center of town in order to change that pole over in front of Briscoe's new building next to Jerry's. And if you look at the wires that leaves that pole, the pipes got moved and so forth, and the pole's cut off at the bottom and the top, and we're finished. We're waiting for Verizon to do their part. And I wonder if this isn't the time to speak to them about putting the wire underground. You know, they haven't moved the wires yet to the new pole, and all the facilities are put in to do it. It's time sensitive for them, and time is money for any company. I understand that, and I'm a stockholder in Verizon. I still want it done.
I think
Denise, Kermit is Kermit Cross. He
Yes.
lives in Elm Park. You've met him.
Yes.
And he's on the commissioner's light board.
So I'd just like to go on record as,
Thank
and
you.
then have something done to follow up on it. I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting.
That's okay. That's all right.
It's not an interruption because we are encouraging a public comment.
Well, I didn't know when to come in. I wasn't scheduled, and I didn't call Nancy, so I'm out of order. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you.
It won't
Thank
be
you for
the
your
last
time.
time.
Okay.
I saw
welcome
Kermit
back.
at Demoulas, and Bill saw
Around,
Kermit.
I still live here, point aside or whatever.
Bye, Kermit. Thank you.
As a quick leverage item, do you think, Betty, we could ask maybe Denise to contact Verizon and?
Do you have a contact for Verizon in your Rolodex?
I'll have to look.
Yeah.
I mean, not since I've been here have I heard them needing.
I could probably get a name from somebody because,
Okay.
And-
Yeah, I'll
I
go
know
out and
some
look at the
people.
park and see what pool is actually in
Right.
question.
And then we do need to put it on as an agenda item because it was brought up, and
Correct.
then we fulfill our obligation under open meeting law. So,
In the interim, we can probably write the tree warden, bring it to his attention so that he doesn't, for some reason, prune.
yeah, I'm sure Kermit would tell
Right.
him to,
Well,
don't you think? But we should let
probably.
him know too.
so that's another item for November 17th. We're getting excited here, we're filling it up. Thank you.
Are we all set on the recreation?
Yes, recreational
Issues?
set. So
Okay.
if you want to take your 7 o'clock and then we'll come back.
Right, Mike's here.
I'm here.
7 o'clock, Michael, right on time.
Right on time.
Thank you. We made you permanent member, I believe. Have we done that yet?
No, I think this was a question of
Okay, all right.
being
It-
a permanent
so-
member of the zoning board,
You've been an alternate, what, for a couple of years now?
about a year.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
It's a 2-year term, the alternate,
I think so.
or is it, no, it's 1 year?
It's an annual, isn't it?
Well, yeah, actually, it was just renewed this past summer, you're
Right,
right.
it's
yeah.
an annual appointment.
So the question was,
The time, do you have the time to give to, it's such a busy board, that's what we want.
the time is, it really depends. I have no idea. I can't say I'm gonna be here every first Wednesday.
You
of the month.
travel a lot?
I travel a lot,
You
yeah.
do.
So it just so happens that I will be here this Wednesday, when I think the meeting is scheduled to take place for November.
This
December.
Wednesday, there's a meeting?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as planning out every first Wednesday of the month, I have no idea.
You don't have.
So the question becomes, one, should I be appointed full-time to that position, given my travel and work schedule? And then two, is there any kind of conflict of interest if I am appointed to that, and then I decide to run for Board of Selectmen again next May?
And should you win,
Should I win? Right,
we would have 2
exactly,
selectmen on the ZBA,
right,
correct?
right.
I would say that should be a separate matter and really shouldn't come into play.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, you're talking 6 months down the road, that's a selectman, it's whether or not you run, whether or not you're
Right.
elected, whether, that really shouldn't impact any decision of the current board,
Okay.
whether or not they're going to appoint you.
I see.
If that happens, then at that point, you could take it up, whether your time allows you to function on both. You'd have to, just as Bill did, get an opinion from council that there is no conflict of interest. But I wouldn't have that affect any appointment.
Shouldn't be an impediment, no?
Zoning board is one of those, just a couple of commissions or boards that really deliver a lot of service to the town and townspeople. So 6 months.
Yeah, I enjoy being on it.
Yeah, 6 months is a long time, so if you can make a decision for the next 6 months, that, afterwards,
Because
we'll address your situation afterwards.
Okay.
If you do run, like I said, if you do get elected, and, we can address it then.
One of the biggest thing is, being on the board, is right now, we have a lot of cases before that
Right.
board, and you can't be on the board, be on one meeting, and then they have a hearing and you miss it, because once you're on the case, you have to stay with the case, you know what I'm
Right.
trying to say? That's the biggest thing, and I think that's probably the only thing that you'd have to make a decision on, is if you could stay with it. I mean, I know myself, I'm local, I work local, it's easy, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And actually, I heard a case that I'll have to hear now and stay with it, because I was on it, and I was only an alternate, but now, because I heard it that night, I've got to stay with it, so, that's the biggest dilemma.
That's my only hangup is I
Right,
can't,
that's your biggest dilemma.
I can't commit to
Right.
being here every Wednesday. As an alternate, yeah, I mean, I'll be an alternate. If there's need for voting on an alternate, then that's an easy thing. But I can't say with 100% certainty that I'm gonna be here every Wednesday to fulfill that depth.
So it's Chris Reddy who resigned recently,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, and
Maybe we should,
the board has been without, has had vacancies over the last several years, and I would, no disrespect to you at all, I would be inclined not to appoint if you can't make a commitment.
I think what we should,
Because initiating a case and following it through is absolutely critical to that service. It's really critical.
Right.
And if you can't make a reasonable commitment to do it on a very sustainable and consistent level, then it would not be a good appointment for the town.
Yeah, like I said, I know I'll be here this Wednesday. I can almost guarantee that December, the first Wednesday in December, I won't be.
Yeah, so
Then January going forward, it's.
You don't
likely.
know.
you just don't know.
I travel across the country and sometimes the world, so I'm all over the place.
Okay.
Could you do it through Skype?
The board could certainly accept remote participation, and then other boards could do remote participation as long as you're not the chair. And you'd have to set a policy for that.
I'm perfectly fine being an alternate. I would step up if I could,
Sure,
to be a permanent one, but
we appreciate that.
I just can't tell you I'm gonna be here every time.
Right. As an alternate, have you had to sit in on, there's a couple of permits that have been before the board that are a little
I think the one
sticky,
Bill's talking about, I've been
controversial.
on, I've been following that one all the way through. I haven't missed that particular issue, so.
Have you had been a voting member on that, or,
Yes, actually I was.
okay, all right.
So I was,
So you can continue in your role as the alternate
Mhm.
and still follow up on those,
yes.
okay. I think maybe, at this time, if you don't mind remaining an alternate, that would
That's
be,
perfectly fine.
that would be good.
I can support that, thank you.
Okay.
How do you feel, Bill?
I think
Feel
that's
the
the best
same way?
decision.
Yeah, and thank you for being so understanding about
Yeah.
that. Appreciate it.
Not a big deal.
Okay,
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, now I get to go home.
thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Denise now. Finance Director's report,
Yes.
roads.
So similar to recreation, I'm proposing a similar thought with the roads. It was brought up that, the board may be interested in looking at some type of paving plan or road plan. So I will meet with Bob. We will figure out what roads he has scheduled to be paved, what needs to be paved, how much money we can actually afford, and how we plan to finance this. At which point then I think he and I could come back to the board and actually present some thoughts and some options on what we could do to address some of the roads. I will tell you, I have had, it's funny, every complaint I get a positive remark about the roads. People drive through Georgetown and they have nothing positive to say about the roads, and then they come through here and say, you know, ours really aren't that bad. So I don't know how many roads need to be paved, what, you know, how much work has been done over the last few years. I know what he's done this year. So I will work with him and we'll figure out what, you know, what a realistic plan would be to pave, you know, however many roads or however much money we can put aside each year to come up with a plan.
I think that's the biggest thing we need right now is a plan. Is definitely a plan, and if we had a plan, we know how many roads are coming forward and how many miles are gonna get done, that'd be great. And, you know, and you would know every year what you need a budget for that, would be perfect. I know we go after the chapter 90 money right now, we use that, I think that's about the only money we can afford right now.
By realistic, I mean, do we have the resources to do these? There's a lot coming at us. It's, you know, out there, being talked about. I think we need to be meeting with the Finance Committee. They might think, you know, they're hearing all these things, that everybody needs something, wants something, and people are getting the idea that they're going to get it. And we have to stop that, because we just bought a huge tract of land, and the taxpayers haven't even seen the impact of that as yet. So I truly worry about people in this community who might not be able to afford to live here any longer if we continue to spend without carefully thinking about what we're doing to other people's finances and resources. We can't have everything we want. We just can't.
Well, I do think there, you know, we could certainly look at, you know, the monetary value. I think we need to be a little more creative. Obviously, we would stay within the Prop 2.5 by methods of borrowing. And that way, we're building into the budget principal and interest and not coming up out of pocket with cash every year. I think, you know, it's been great that you've had the ability to pay for capital items year after year with cash, but it's only allowing a few items to be done and maybe not deal with some of the infrastructure issues that the town is facing. So I think if we can come up with a percentage that we want to borrow each year and still work that feasibly within our budget, the
Right.
debt payments, we can come up with some type of plan to deal with it.
I think one of the biggest thing is kind of going off what Betty said, one of the biggest thing is, everyone always says it's only $100 on your income taxes, it's only $100. That's the biggest thing that people,
100 here,
you know,
100
the
there.
committees make you believe it's 100, but they don't realize how many hundreds. The land purchase on Buston's property could have been 600, you know what I mean? Then we're gonna go for whatever we went for, a highway truck, whatever it might be. You gotta add up all those hundreds and then realize what it cost. If you buy a ladder truck for $990, and you take it out for 10 years, at the end of 10 years, it's 1.5 million, or whatever it might be, not the exact number, but, you know, it's not 90 when it's all said and done and paid for. So,
Correct, but the difference is, the land was a debt exclusion.
Right.
So we went out and asked people to increase their taxes to
Right,
afford that.
right.
I'm not proposing we do
No,
that.
no, I'm not saying you
proposing we
are.
do that within our means. And,
Right,
You know,
right.
we may have to make sacrifices elsewhere if we
Right.
decide that roads are a priority.
Right.
Any proposals that I put forward as far as capital would not be an increase other than the normal 2.5. and we
Right,
would stick with
what I'm
that.
trying to, what I was trying to get at is what I think we need to make the people in town realize more is not to increase our debt. That's where I'm coming from. I do not want to increase our debt. If, like you said, if we can put a percentage in, we can cover it in-house, and it's not gonna cost a lot of money, not gonna pass anything on to the taxpayers, that's what I'm for. That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to add something if I could, Denise. I'm not gonna be at this meeting with Bob, and maybe you can transfer some of these thoughts to him. Let me ask you a question. Can you do 5-year bonding? Okay, so if you could use 5-year bonds, we could borrow, kind of pay as you go, an amount of money that would allow Bob to designate, let's say, 2 or 3 streets a year. And say, for this year, I'm gonna need, let's say, $150,000 to do 3 streets. We would allow Bob to have the discretion to choose those streets. We're not gonna have public hearings and ask people which streets do you want done. As was done in the past, I know that there's some history at town meetings, people would, vote the funds for their street, and then the next year, they wouldn't vote for the funds for their neighbor's street. So we're gonna get off of that. I'd like to get off of that. Give total discretion to the road commissioner to decide which streets. Now, obviously, I would wish for him to start with the streets that haven't been done. For example, Harvard and Yale haven't been done since 1963, I think, or 64.
That's true.
Obviously, start with the oldest ones, the ones that are in greatest disrepair. But yeah, if we can roll out a plan so that every year we're doing 1, 2, or 3 streets within Proposition 2.5, using 5-year bonds, leaving the public out of selecting which streets, that's gonna be music to my ears. The second thing, and I'm gonna ask for your advocacy on this as well, if you can deliver it. I have a friend, and there are many people who have friends and family that have loved ones buried at our cemetery. I think that the road condition of the cemetery is a disgrace. I think people that come in from out of town and from out of state and go to our cemetery to go visit their loved ones deserve better than what they are experiencing there. And I realize, I blame the state. Chapter 90 funding is minimal. Those are town roads in the cemetery. So in your planning with Bob, I need a real hard commitment that some section of that cemetery will be done every year for the next 5 years, so that we get it done, we clean it up, and we bring honor to those that are passed and to the families that go visit them. It's almost an emotional issue. It's not just, we gotta get roads fixed in the cemetery. We've gotta make that place better for the people that visit it. And Bob Guptill and some of the folks at the cemetery, they're going through an amazing process, as you know, with restoration of stones, the Civil War. There's gonna be a project with the Revolutionary era portion of the cemetery. So we can't have all this restoration work and not have roads to take people to those stones. So if Bob can do 3 streets next year, but it'll only be 2, if he needs to accommodate a little section of the cemetery, then that's what I'm hoping to see. So every year, we're getting something done in that cemetery. Now, the good news about the cemetery, unlike other roads, is once you do build those roads and repave them, they last a little bit longer than a heavily traveled road. So we might get 15 years instead of 10 years. But I'm really looking for a hard commitment, a serious commitment that cemetery is addressed. And if you can pass that message on, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Are we in
Bill, do you have a?
Yeah, I got it.
agreement to?
Yeah, well, I just want to have a conversation about that. Number one, maybe, I'm just trying to ask a question. If we were to get a bond of $150,000 per se to do our roads, do we pass any of that on to the taxpayers? Is that free money? do the taxpayers have to pay that 150,000 back? So it's 100%
We pay it out of our budget.
out of the budget.
Out
So
of our budget.
taxpayers are gonna pay it, but we're not gonna increase the taxes,
No.
they're
Correct.
gonna pay it out of the, okay.
Yeah, it's like if Bob needs X amount of dollars to operate his department this year, this year we'll plus him up, for lack of a better word, 150,000 more. Next year might be 90, the year after that might be 180. We constantly, and we're borrowing using 5-year bonds, which we absorb the cost of them inside our proposition.
Right now, we aren't doing that for what reason?
Say proposition, our 2.5 increase, rather.
Just not the way things have been handled.
Okay,
It was decided it was better, it's different philosophies. So my predecessor thought it was better to pay cash for items and not carry debt, which is perfectly fine. But then you're limited to what you can cover each year because you're
Right.
only dealing with what you have in
Right,
cash.
right.
If you start to work in some method of borrowing, you can certainly still pay cash for some items, but then you're maybe borrowing larger items. There has been talk of a fire truck. There's no way we could find $1 million in our budget. We would
Right.
have to borrow that.
Right.
So you start to come up with some creative plans where you're borrowing,
Right.
and then in the budget, instead of paying $100,000 in cash, you're paying $15,000 a year in principal.
Right.
And you're spreading that out so that it lets you cover more things.
Right.
Pay as you go, basically.
Yes.
Very good.
In regards to that, my point was, I just wouldn't want to overbearing, and I thought the way they said in the past, they didn't want to overbear in the town. They were trying to not broke the town, get too many grants, put them in the.
Overextend us.
Overextend us, put us in the hole, so. And to go back to what Joe just said about the cemetery, I was a cemetery commissioner for 4 years. I was one of the ones that helped implement getting the roads that have been done now up there. Bob did, the main roads, and, the plan up there was to turn around and take some of the back roads that weren't being used and to not re-hot top them and turn them into, grave sites, but not actual full grave sites. It would've,
Yes.
what's that?
That's still their plan.
Yeah, and I think there's only maybe left in there, might be maybe 2 or 3 more roads that need to be done, but they needed some extensive work. And at that time, we really put the pressure on, and we got it done. He did come up and finally do it. But like he said, there's other roads in Groveland that need it. I can't justify having people drive over a main road that's bad and go up into a cemetery. So that's why it didn't get done to the extent. So like Joe said, maybe if we could do one road, if it's possible to do one road, would be good. But I don't think we're gonna get them all done in a year.
No, we're not. Like I said, if we can get the cemetery done in 5 years, if Bob can do 3 streets next year, have him do 2 streets plus 1 in the cemetery. The following year, if he can do 4 streets, have him do 3 streets and then something in the cemetery. So in 5 years, we get the cemetery done. It's not unreasonable. So we don't need to put pressure, we just need a plan.
There are some tough roads up
I wasn't saying put pressure.
there.
I
There
understand.
are.
I didn't say pressure. I said we pressured him
No, I
at
get
the
it.
time to get the
Well,
roads
we don't
done.
want to pressure
You
Bob.
know,
We just,
I go in there and there are some really, my mother's grave's on a gravel road, so, who would-
question of integrity and honor, and we need to express that. And people from all over the country and all over the world visit that cemetery, and it's an embarrassment.
Well, I'm sure Bob has a plan himself on what roads he would normally pave each year, so we just need to fine tune. I just need to sit with him and
I
see
think when you
what
sit with
he
him,
has.
he's going to have something.
Right, I'm assuming he already knows in his mind what would be
Exactly.
on,
Sure.
on board for next year and then the following year.
Right.
So it's just a matter of figuring out how much that would cost, how much we would get in chapter 90, and how much the town, and again, it would be the board, the finance committee, and town meeting to say, yes, we
Right.
support this by putting an additional 150,000, or whatever the amount may be,
Exactly.
to cover additional roads and/or the cemetery.
Yeah.
So we just need to,
Good. Well, I
Firm that
commend you
plan up.
also for showing us a new way of dealing with this, because it's
Very
been
helpful to us.
fits and starts over the years, so now I'm all in favor of what you're doing. I appreciate it. Very well done.
We need to approve a one-day liquor license for VZ Park, is that correct? For this coming weekend, would it be this weekend?
yes, do you want me to just wrap up I just have the
Oh,
cable.
I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
Denise, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I just wanted to just follow back up on the cable. I spoke with Chris and the people from HB Communications, so they are actively looking at the fire station and figuring out how they're going to make the equipment work. It is by far the best meeting space available. It's actually a really nice meeting room that I do think we should be utilizing more.
And I thought we did give him a go-ahead with that. I know
Yes.
we did. We sat here one night, thought that would be a great location to, you know, a lot of training could be done there. It would truly be used, I think, a lot.
It would, and it, like I said, it is nice. It has a projector, a board to project on. You could do presentations. You could have, it's a well-lit room. It's a nicely shaped room for meetings.
Plenty of parking to go over there?
Correct. So he is he's gonna work with the chief to figure out where the equipment would go, how it would be secure. The fire chief is completely on board. He thinks it's great that people can get out and see the fire station and actually make use of that facility.
Good.
So, just to follow up, that is the plan.
There was a lot of work being done at the South Fire Station today.
Yes, so South Fire Station is, not this past town meeting, the prior town meeting, money was approved to pave South Station.
Uh-huh.
And given, again, the nature of our roads department with 3 guys and Bob, they are getting into it now. So that's what they did today. They actually paved South Station and I believe part of Washington Hall. They may have,
Did they go out into the parking lot at South Station? Did they?
They did the whole complete building and Landon Avenue.
Right. Good,
They did Landon Ave, I believe, and the whole station.
very good.
So Denise, that was approved in 2013 or 2012?
2013.
2013, okay.
Well, it's happening. It looks good.
It is, yes, so that is all set now. And that is all I have, so now you may move on to the one-day liquor license.
Do I have a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for VZ Park for this Saturday, 5 PM to 8:30? It's an annual wine and arts reception.
Yeah,
Do I-
just, I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license for the wine, the annual wine and art reception at VZ Park, to be held, according to the permit, it's 4:30 to 8:30, and that will also include a detail officer required on the premises.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second on that, Bill?
Yeah, I just had a little discussion.
Okay.
They must have already gone before we had said on these things that they had to go before the chief. We don't have any kind of,
They did come in to see us, remember?
Okay.
And we told them that as long as they had
Gone
an
before-
okay
from
from the police
chief.
department,
Right.
that
so
would
we
be
don't,
okay.
we don't know.
They had some issues about what the cost might be for their insurance, but there's nothing we can really do about that.
No, so they do have an insurance certificate, and we did allow them to follow the same criteria as the Speedway Reunion and Groveland Day, which is not the limits that were in our policy. Our policy required higher limits, but the last 2 events, we did allow insurance at a lower amount, so we
Right,
did
right.
honor that for this.
Good.
The current policy does state alcohol is required to have a detail officer. They do not have to go to the chief because it is required,
Okay.
which they are.
Then I'll second Joe's.
Yeah. And you know what, just a procedural point of order. When we use Robert's rules, which we do, we try to, when we make a motion, we shouldn't vote right away. We should have a discussion, and then we vote. So you'll notice that we did that a little while ago. I said, well, I'm gonna make a motion, and let's talk about it, but we voted. So let's get into the habit of making motions and then talking about it and then voting, so that's,
Well, I think that's what I had done,
yeah.
hopefully.
Okay,
So we.
so we did have a discussion,
We did
and
stumble upon it.
we know about their coverage, and it's a little less than we had asked for originally, but Pine Speedway had a smaller amount. It was still ample, wasn't it, Denise?
It is, I mean, it's still enough to cover us. It's not what the insurance company recommends.
Okay.
I do think at some point we should revisit the events policy, because if we're going to allow lesser coverage, we do want to just make sure we address that somehow. So I've been surveying some other communities on what they require. It's all over the board. So I am trying to narrow down what other communities require for their events, so that we can come to some consensus if there is wiggle room with the insurance coverage.
Yeah, we wanna apply the standard uniformly, and I agree,
Makes
I have
it
no
easy for
concern that
everybody.
that's not happening.
Okay,
So I
we
did second Joe's
had a
motion.
motion by Joe to
We
approve.
talked about
the
it, we have a second, now we can vote on it.
One-day liquor license, Bill made the second, we had discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, and they'll
If
be
you'd
all
like to
set.
si- oops, if you'd like to
What?
sign.
Let's hope they'll all be, they'll have a good night. Lots of people will attend.
You know, that's another point. I went to the spaghetti dinner up at VC, and I hope that we can get an opportunity at every meeting to promote those type of activities to get, you know, better turnout.
I know they didn't have
They
that
did a
many
great
people.
job.
They worked hard.
The
but
food was unbelievable. I saw Donnie in the kitchen and Jim
Donnie's
Sheehan,
family.
and, we had a great time, but we certainly, if I know that that event is coming up, or any event, we should use this platform at a meeting to promote, you know,
Right.
that something's coming up.
I think a lot of that is public relations and getting the word out.
Yeah.
Well, they do
I don't
have an
think the-
events coordinator up there.
Well, I don't think the word got out.
Danielle Ingraham is the events coordinator.
Maybe they could do
So-
a better job getting the word out, I don't know.
We're all set.
Yeah.
First annual.
It was the first annual.
time that they've
Did you
done
go,
it.
Tracy?
I didn't make it to that, but I'd make it the next time. I just
Right.
kinda
Well,
like-
we want to encourage them to keep going with that event, and we want to promote it, so, I don't know, we gotta figure out, let me think about it, how I can pay attention to what's coming up, so, you know, like the Snowflake Fair is coming up, and St. James has an event, and Congregational Church, this weekend's very busy, you know, and the fire department has their, Turkey Night, November 21st, you know, and, you know, people are now paying attention to our meetings more because of the technology upgrades, so, you know, if we could do a little broadcasting and get people aware of what's coming up. Bagnall,
Selectmen would encourage groups to, in the public forum section,
yeah.
that if you're having an event coming up.
Yeah, please come and tell us, that's a great
we could
idea.
do During the public forum
Sign up
session,
front.
that they tell the selectmen, which would also get the word out.
Yeah,
Denise can put that on the message board.
Correct, I can put any message, you know, any event can go on cable. I'll be honest, I don't receive any.
Okay.
So
we've
I
gotta
usually
encourage people.
solicit, you know, the library to send things, but I don't receive, you know, like, I didn't get any of this information for the cable or the website. I know Nancy probably put it on the board out front, but I can certainly put it on our message board on cable.
the Bagnall Educational Foundation has an event on the 21st. And it's in Georgetown, so that's a fundraiser. So we've got some really good things. We really want to get into an organized way of helping people promote what they're,
I have one to promote.
go ahead.
November 11th, Veterans Day, also known as Armistice Day.
Yes, thank you for that.
And it's held here on the lawn in front of this building. Should it rain, I think they go into the fire station.
10:30.
It's at 10:30 in the morning, and it's nicely done, and it's nice. All the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are out there, along with Pentucket students and bands, and it's a nice ceremony, and it's not long, but it certainly brings us all back to what it's about and why we're living in a wonderful country.
So it's a veterans ceremony. And then, for those that are interested afterwards, immediately afterwards, one of the Eagle Scout, I believe it's Eagle Scout candidate, is doing a flag restoration event on the premises as well, so.
His
We'll try to
name,
get a little bit more information on that. It's actually on Facebook. I saw it this afternoon.
his
and-
name is Geiger, and I don't know his first
Jeff.
name. Is it Jeff Geiger?
Yeah.
Right, he did come in to see us,
Yeah.
to check with us about that event
So there'll
that
be
he
a
wanted
flag,
to do.
I believe it's a flag restoration seminar and demonstration immediately following the veterans ceremony on November 11th. So that should kick off at around 12 o'clock. So the ceremony's at 10:30, and immediately following, I believe, 11:30 to somewhere around 11:30 and 12, Jeff will have his event for people that would be interested in the process of how to restore flags and preserve them.
Very good.
That's a great project.
The Library has hired 2 new pages.
No, so the library item is coming off the agenda. They were not ready to appoint for this evening.
Oh, they weren't, okay.
They have 2 vacancies, a library assistant and a library page. The library assistant, they are going to keep that posting open until filled. So they are hoping to receive some more resumes for some qualified candidates for that.
Uh-huh.
The library page, they actually, what they're planning to do is keep the total hours of the page for 14, but they're looking to hire multiple people to work 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, so that they have availability that if someone can't make it. But that job posting does not close until Thursday. So
Okay.
they will not be ready until your next meeting to make request appointments.
Okay.
What else do we have? We have something, I noticed the hours of operation on Sundays have changed for those that sell liquor in the Commonwealth of Mass. And Jerry's Variety has requested that we allow them to open at 10 a.m.
Correct, so you would have to approve the hours of operation. The state has authorized these places that serve alcohol to open at 10, but they do have to request a change of hours from their licensing authority, which is the Board of Selectmen. So you would have to just vote on his change of hours, and that can be sent into the state to enact that.
Can we do that now?
Yes,
This
you may.
point?
I'd like to make a motion to align Jerry's Variety operating hours for liquor sales on Sunday with the new law. And that would be the adjustment of 10 o'clock, is it?
Correct.
10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays?
It's only Sundays, correct? How about other holidays?
I believe it's just Sunday. I don't know if it's holidays included.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I wasn't able to find that in the application.
Denise, would this have to do with, I know there's 2 other liquor stores in town?
It's applicable to anybody, but they have to come to the board and
So
petition
Jerry's
if
has
they
already
wanna-
asked.
He
Okay.
was in,
So
Alright,
each of those other
We'll have to come before us separately.
stores will have to see us for that, huh?
Correct.
If they're going to
Alright.
change their hours
because
of
it's a
operation.
change in hours, correct. They have the right to do so, but they
Okay.
have to request to
All
change
right.
their
All
hours.
right, so I
So
made-
Joe made the motion.
And the law actually just states Sunday hours. It does not mention holidays.
Doesn't mention holidays, huh?
So it
Okay.
used, I'm sorry, did you do a second?
I
He
did.
Okay, now let's discuss it. It used to be 1 o'clock, so we're going down to 10 o'clock.
I think it was noontime.
Oh,
Noontime.
noon time,
It
all
says
right.
from noon.
Yes.
All right.
So he's looking to change.
It's got 2
from
hours
noon.
earlier.
So they'd like to sell liquor on Sundays, starting at 10 instead of noon time. Got it, okay. And that's in line with the new law,
Correct.
and this filing does not require any fee,
No.
Okay.
It's just a change in hours.
change in hours, okay?
And we've never had any problems that we're aware of. So he certainly, if the law allows it, he should be able to do that.
Yes, and the law did just change October 23rd, so it is
Okay.
very recent.
It's a new law.
So that's why, he was right on top of that and wanted to come in and get that changed.
So all the others, if they want a level playing field, they certainly can come in and see Denise, and you'll give them the appropriate information, and we'll address it at our next meeting or down the road in the future, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and Bill, you seconded that?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous for Jerry's Variety Store.
Bill, here's the permit on that, if you can sign that.
Okay.
Then I think the only other 2 items on your agenda, you have some correspondence.
Yeah.
From the Conservation Commission, and then a response by the building inspector regarding 441 Main Street. And you have a letter from the superintendent of schools regarding the
Media coverage or something?
some of the assets in Pentucket, and what they have to offer. They do have their new, sports complex that's opening. So it's just some information on, thank you. on
Did
the
they
schools.
invite us to the opening of that? Is that what this is about? Or they're just letting us know that's
I think they're
happening?
just letting you know, they originally were having a grand opening.
Did they do?
It was going to be a Relay for Life walk, and they were inviting the public, but that was
Yeah.
earlier in October. I don't think that happened.
It's coming up.
Yeah, so they've postponed it and pushed it back a little bit.
Got the date now, it's coming up.
All right.
I want to say the 16th, but I'm not totally sure. Let me speak, if I can, to one of the correspondence items. Let me just read this to you. The completion of Pentucket's $2.6 million sports complex raises questions about next steps for the district to leverage education as a community asset. So I won't read the full letter, but basically what the superintendent has done at a recent regional finance committee meeting is to propose putting together a very large committee of public members, boards of selectmen, finance directors, members of the public, to come up with an initial plan for the renovation or possibly rebuilding of the high school. And let me read some of this, because this is important. The limitations of the high school building have become evident. Its limitations impede the delivery of intended program results. Earlier this year, Pentucket expanded and initiated several innovative educational programs that align with its ambitious vision of becoming the educational opportunity of choice for students, the career opportunity of choice for talented educators, and the investment opportunity of choice for the community. So I won't go through the programs, such as some accelerated courses for middle school and high schoolers, and we also have what's called innovation schools. But what we want to do here is to begin putting together some concepts as to what a renovated high school should look like in order to accommodate the new educational initiatives and programs that have been put in place. It probably will be a renovation rather than a complete rebuild, but who knows? And the good news is that the state now will look at the campus of both the middle school and the high school as one unit. This is gonna be an expensive project. We're talking about many millions of dollars. I think right now, at best, the state will provide 51% at best. The rest of it will be on our three towns to fund. So this will be a long-term project, a long-term financing project. It will raise our taxes one way or another. And I think that the first step right now is to begin with a concept proposal. This is not the actual proposal that will be sent to the state, where we're actually soliciting the money, but it'll be an initial concept proposal. So I volunteered to join this committee. There are a number of dates that are available, both afternoon and evenings, in the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. So if anybody would like to join this committee and have a voice in creating an initial proposal for renovating our school, our high school, then they should contact Jeff Malqueen, the superintendent.
And I will put these
Directly at the
dates,
school.
I'll put the dates and times on our website and on cable.
Terrific.
Very good.
Joe, to go back to the renovated complex, the sports complex,
Yes.
that 2.6 million did not cost the taxpayers any money. They found that in their budget, am I correct?
No, we spent, we appropriated, I think it was $800,000 from the towns that we, I don't remember the details, but it is costing taxpayers money. We were able to appropriate approximately $800,000 from the three towns. I forgot how that was done, and then the rest came from the regional, Pentucket regional sources, basically through borrowing. So indirectly, it's still taxpayer money, because if we're gonna support the school through its budget, built into that budget is the financing for the 2.6 million. Good news is the superintendent has maintained a commitment that he's not going to ask the towns for operating money. So we haven't had an override request from the regional school district since he's been on board, which is quite different from the 6 years that I was on the school committee, where every year there was a request for an override. So things have changed. Hopefully they'll stay that way. All right, I've got two, there's a few things I'd like to cover. We have a component in every Board of Selectmen meeting now that we've implemented a couple of months ago called the open session, which generally should be used either for me to report to the board back on some special project, such as, for example, when I received permission from Betty, the chair, to go out and meet with the folks who were concerned about the Eagle Scout project. So I went out there, and then I came back, and I did it also in writing, but I
Well,
also
we all
reported.
agreed as a board.
We agreed as a board, so thank you. So we need to have that component in place at all times, because tonight I need to make some recommendations for future agenda items. The other thing that I'd like to see beginning at next meeting is we want to have a public comment component in every meeting. If people don't show up, then, okay, it's just on the agenda, but I would say around 7 o'clock should be the time that we have what's called public comment. And there is specific language and, embedded in Massachusetts general laws of what people can say and do at public comment. I won't review that now, but we can certainly review that at every meeting, especially such as we saw tonight. Inez came in with a great idea. It would have been really a good idea for us to read out loud before she began and before Kermit began as to what the rules are for public comment. But we did this on the school committee. Every night at 7 o'clock, public comment. People would come up to the microphone and deliver something related to the agenda. And if it wasn't related to the agenda, we're not violating open meeting law as long as we put it on the following meeting agenda in some fashion, that something was discussed. So for example, tonight, Kermit Cross presented us with something. It wasn't on the agenda, but we're not gonna be in violation if we bring that forward at the next meeting. It's embedded in the minutes. And people don't understand that. We've got some criticism on social media recently that we're, routinely violating open meeting law. We're not. If we follow the rules, and we understand how it works.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Because I want to encourage people to come to meetings and express themselves. I don't want to scare them off that they're in violation of some law.
Are we that concerned with social media? Are we all following what they say out there? Should we be? Do we have to be responding to social media?
No, I don't have
I
an
don't-
answer for that.
I just don't think that, that people can say anything they want.
Well, I think any public expression in any forum, whether it's social media or an open meeting, is a public expression, and it causes me to think about, a response, and the response is that I want to encourage what we saw tonight. Kermit came in, gave us a great idea, now we're going to bring it forward, make sure that it's embedded in the minutes, it's expressed, and actively pursued as an agenda item over the course of the next meeting or two. Inez engaged with our new process for how to get things on the agenda, and she did a splendid job. I mean, she came in with a proposal, she even did some homework to help us out. We want to encourage people. We don't want to have empty seats. We want people to come to these meetings and express themselves.
So one thing, though, to note is, yes, if people come for public comment, the board should say, yes, we'd like to pursue that, it will be on a future agenda item. I think one of the criticisms has been the use of selectmen's time has turned into more of a discussion and a debate instead of saying, this is what I'd like to see. Selectmen time is not just a free-for-all. It should be, this is an item that's coming up, I'd like to have the board look into this, I'd like to see this as a future item, I'd like to congratulate so-and-so, I'd like to talk about the wine tasting. That time is not a catch-all of whatever wants to come up. And I think that's where the criticism has come from. Personally, I am not one to follow social media. I think if someone has a criticism, they should come here and speak to the board, or they should contact the office. But you do have to be careful of what's being said and what might be misinterpreted as, an innocent gesture at a meeting that has turned into someone claiming you're violating open meeting law. So I think you have to be cautious, but I don't really think you should.
Well, social media, oftentimes people don't even put their name to their comment.
Correct.
So, if they choose to do that, why are we going to go down that road? Why would we? It's gossip.
One thing that I was gonna say is, we only had one Kermit Cross in here tonight. We could have 5 or 6 people in here, and it would become very disrupting to the meeting, and you wouldn't get to the topics you wanted to get to. That's why we've always said to be put on the agenda and would gladly hear. And I can understand what Joe's saying, as far as someone coming in. You'd want them to come into the meeting and want them to feel they could come into the meeting, but they gotta understand, we have an agenda we need to keep to, and we have time we need to keep to, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say, no, you can't come in. And as far as the social media piece, I don't have Facebook, and one reason is because sometimes the truth isn't spoken on social media. That's how I don't follow it. I just, people get behind, with my business, they get behind social media, and they're sending you texts that didn't even happen, what's true, and I'm trying to defend my company, so that's why I don't do it, that's all.
So the idea is we want to be sure that because when I proposed it, that was my idea, simply to make it an open session to propose future agenda items and/or to report on completed special projects. So, agreed. All right, so I'd like to move on. I've got 3 things I'd like to put on.
There was one thing that what we didn't discuss was in our agenda tonight, we didn't talk about this letter from Eric Harper. I don't know if it's not supposed to talk about it.
No, that's just a correspondence item, that's not.
So there's
anything.
nothing from Eric. There's a letter from Conservation to
Right.
Mr. Harper, and
Which-
then there's a letter from the building inspector, just following up on the letter from
So
Conservation.
not talking about this letter at all. I had a person from Wharf Drive, doesn't want to be known, the person doesn't want to be known, or name spoken. They wanted to have the board know that there's piles of dirt down there, there's piles of hot top down there, there's no silt fence around it, there's no hay bales around it, and supposedly the conservation went through there and said these people had to do it. I didn't go to the meeting, so I don't know what the violations were, but they want to make sure the conservation knows there's no hay bales and no silt fence, and there is no precision, nothing in place that most people would have to put in place to stop erosion.
Well,
And that-
let me make a recommendation. Have that person contact the Conservation Board, and then, because there are public hearings that are planned specifically for this property, which have to be completed by December 1st. It shouldn't be anything that we should try to funnel
I
through
think the
here.
person has tried contacting people, and
Right
they've
here.
got nowhere.
Oh, I don't believe that.
No.
I'm sorry. Mike Dempsey will respond to anybody.
I didn't say Mike, and I don't wanna be on the record of
Conservation
saying
Board.
that. I'm just saying they have tried contacting departments and gotten nowhere, that's all I'm saying. I didn't say anyone's name, and I didn't say the person's name for that reason.
Well, I mean, I can say that I know Conservation has been out, the Health Department has been out, the health agent. There have been people in different groups that have been going to this property and looking based on, again, a lot of it is, gossip and hearsay on things that have been happening. We were told they were dumping in the river, and that's not the case. So, we have sent boards and committees out. Their reports, the health agent gave us her report that she didn't find anything happening there that wasn't in purview of the permit. Conservation, I mean, they did outline a few things that are taking place that they would like updated and presented at a plan for December 1st. So I do think people are actively looking at this property, meaning the boards and committees. If there is something that, they feel is not being addressed, they really should follow up with Conservation and just say, this is what's been outlined, we think there's more, and just have Conservation follow up on that again. Again, we don't want it to look like we're picking on 441 Main
Nope,
Street,
not at
because we're
all.
not.
No,
We're just trying to make sure that
Nope.
boards and committees are talking to one another, the permits are being acquired and fulfilled as they should be, and everything is being done properly. And it does seem like, now the committees are talking, letters are going back and forth, so I do think we're making progress.
I think it's very exciting what's going on. When I read these letters, and I did take that walk, I asked for the board's consensus to enable any one of us to go take that walk through with the Conservation Board on October, I believe, 17th, I think. That was a great walkthrough, and everything that was expressed in this letter, which is now a public document, is true. I think there's a great effort towards resolving the issues and getting the property compliant. We have an awesome opportunity here to see that property developed, and a very visionary developer in the form of Eric, and I'm glad to see that he's working those issues through with all the applicable boards. So if there's now an additional piece of information, those people should approach the applicable board, not the Board of Selectmen. Okay, I have 3 items that I'd like for future agenda items. Of course, with your approval. 2 of them have to do with building our tax base or expanding our tax base. I would like to have a discussion about sending out a letter to all business owners, giving us a list of all vehicles that are parked on their property on a permanent basis. Because I'd like to make sure that if there's a business in town that has, whether it's a bus or whether it's a tractor-trailer truck or some piece of equipment, that it's registered to the town so that we're collecting the fees. My understanding is that there are some businesses that are parking trucks on a fairly consistent and long-term and permanent basis, and the registration is not through Groveland. It's through other towns, and we're not collecting the taxes on that. That's a concern. I don't know how to enforce it. I'm not about to make a suggestion that I'm gonna go out and, or any one of us should go out and look at properties, but we do need to have at least a letter sent out, and every business reporting to us what vehicles are parked on your property. Let's start with that and go from there. Denise, did you have any thoughts about that?
I don't think there's any requirement, I don't think you can mandate private businesses to report that information.
What about permitting, through our permitting process? If someone has a business in this town that has vehicles, can we integrate into the permitting that those vehicles have to be registered to the town?
I would say it would probably depend on what type of permit they're looking for and if it's relevant to the permit question. I don't think you can just make it a blanket, you know, if you're getting a building permit, we wanna make sure the cars here are related. I think it would have to be related somewhat to
Okay.
the inquiry. I can certainly look, I can ask other
If you
communities.
can look into it, and then you can suggest to us when we can have it as an agenda item. It's clearly not something that can go on November 17th if you have to do a little research. But
Yeah.
again, I want to give this town a fighting chance to expand our tax base and to collect what we can collect. The next item, Yema
Can
Road.
I just talk about that for a minute?
Okay,
Okay. In Groveland, there was a piece of property that had just been turned into a storage facility, and the people that go to that storage facility don't have to have any of their vehicles registered, or they do not have to have them registered to the town. And one of my big things was, I wanted to make sure that the town had the input on all those businesses that went in there, so those businesses would be able to now have to register their business to the town, and we would collect the tax base on it.
Their business or their vehicle?
Business and vehicles.
Okay.
So the tax base of Groveland, they have a way of
Realized,
collecting the money.
right,
The
right.
project is a storage facility, so now we cannot collect any tax base off that property. The only thing
We
I
can't?
don't believe we can, and I don't think they have to register their vehicles. And I think the only way we're gonna collect any kind of tax base off that kind of situation is the owner would have to come back to our assessor and tell them what business are renting down there, and that would be probably that person, the owner would have to come back. So I'm agreeing with Joe, somehow there's gotta be some way of dealing with this 100%, because that's where a lot of our town money comes from. And we have to somehow get to the bottom of it. I don't know how you go about it, but I think it's in the permitting process of businesses, you make sure they have to come before the town.
yeah. Oh, well, Denise will research it, and hopefully that'll be an active discussion we have 4 meetings left this year, November 17th, December 1st, December 15th, and December 29th, and it would be great if we can accommodate this issue with some details as to what we can do, and maybe the letter idea is not the way to go, but let's talk about it, and let's see if we can
Well, I
get
don't
our.
want to violate anybody's rights,
Yeah,
even though they may be skirting
skirting-
the issue. I know Greg, a few years back, had many complaints about children being dropped off at Dagnall School with numerous
New Hampshire
out-of-state plates.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I know he worked with the police department regarding that. But to send a letter, would DOR be able to tell you if you can do that or not, or?
Well, that's why I think she's gonna research it.
Yeah, I need to figure out, I think you can certainly send a letter, I don't think there's any requirement for them to respond. I
Right.
don't think they have to provide their vehicles that are
Right.
registered to that business or parked on that property. I don't think there's any requirement for that.
Okay.
So that's what I will need to find out.
Okay.
All right.
Any other comment on that? Because I have 2 more items. Yema Road, I don't exactly know the full extent of how Yema Road is zoned, but here's my thought. I'm gonna go to a planning board meeting on November 18th, and it's public hearings for some developments, houses going up, subdivisions. And that's good. I'm pleased that people continue to feel that Groveland is a great place to grow up and raise a family and grow old with dignity and live here. But we're doing very little in this town to expand our tax base, and we have very little space left to do that anywhere. Now, thankfully, going back to the Main Street property, that's a golden opportunity for us to be able to generate some revenue from a business, industrial zoned parcel. Yema Road, I believe, is not industrial zoned, and I know that to get a rezoning, you have to have a 2/3 vote at town meeting. I know it's a tough thing to do, but I would like to have an agenda item at some point in the future, in one of the last 4 meetings of this year, and talk about what steps we can take to rezone Yema Road so that it is industrial zone, and then we, as a town, can market it to business interests to see if they might develop it, so that, God forbid, we might end up with a tax revenue generating property. I believe that the best way to approach this is if we convene a study committee made up of all affected boards, conservation, planning, zoning, Board of Selectmen. They make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and then if there's consensus, it ends up being a warrant article at some point in the future, not for this year coming, but certainly for 2016, so that if we do rezone it to industrial, then we can hang it out there to the business community, to the investment community, and say, guess what? Come to Groveland, we have a nice little parcel for you to develop. It's worth a try. We have very little left. We've bought some land, the state just bought some land from us, we have subdivisions going up, and I'm very, very concerned that if we don't grow our tax base, especially through business and industrial zoning, we're gonna raise our taxes beyond the ability for a lot of people to afford to stay living here. I'm very concerned about that. We need to take a strategic, long-term approach to it. Your thoughts, anybody?
Yema Road, how far in on Yema Road? When does it turn into Haver's property?
It's a good question. I don't know. Bill, do you have any clue?
The left-hand side of Yema Road is Haverhill. The right-hand side the right-hand side and forward is Groveland. And the dump has used up, the Haverhill dump has used up some of that land when they capped it.
The landfill?
And I think, don't quote me, but I believe the quarry needs to still be filled in, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But it would be worth looking into. I think Bob O'Callaghan could probably give you a lot of input on that, because he was, for years, they hauled out of there and,
I believe there's 25 acres in there.
there's a lot.
Yeah, there's 25 acres, woodland, woodland area,
To
Park
go off
Road.
of, to go off what Joe said, I am in 100% agreement and said since day one, we need tax base. And I know it's kind of premature, but we have 5 available lots right in the front of the busing property we just purchased. And if we could somehow look into that and subdivide some of those lots off, get some of our revenue, put it back into a committee that they could use on that property and help develop that property and get that property going, there's one spot we could get some business revenue.
Well, maybe you can bring that idea, if you can, there's gonna be, at some point, there'll be a committee that will be created, and then we're gonna approve nominations, and then we're gonna give this committee a special charge to study the busing property on how to use it, and one of us should be on that committee as well, to represent the board, and maybe, Bill, you can join that board, so
I
you can
can't,
bring that
that's-
forward.
We discussed this once before, I can't, I'm on a
Peanut
butter.
butter?
Okay,
I can't be on that committee.
all right, well, then I'll pick your brain, and maybe
Yeah,
I'll.
yeah, that's
I'll join
okay.
it.
I just can't, because I'm on a butter, it'd be a conflict of interest.
Keep in mind that Bill Angelini will be removing material from his
Yeah,
property and
good
going
point.
through that,
Good point.
that busing land for maybe 3 or 4 years.
The original permit's 5 years with an optional 2-year extension.
Yeah.
That he has the board has granted him access of the busing property to haul his materials off.
But we shouldn't be held hostage not to use that land for 5 years.
No, that's correct, but you'd have to make sure that it
He
still
has access in and
accommodates
out.
the
Exactly,
earth
he needs
removal.
his access,
We
right.
can maybe develop or use a portion of it.
Right.
That's why that committee will be helpful in helping hash that all out, so that they eventually come to us, because they'll be in an advisory role, and then make a recommendation as to how that property should be developed, so.
Just a comment on the busing property. I guess last year, the board approved a piece of the busing property to become a firing range for the police department.
Oh, yeah, what happened to
Upon
that?
sale of or purchase of the property. So that is moving forward. The light department has put in some infrastructure with poles and lighting. They are now working on getting some pricing for the range itself.
And what's the source of funding for that?
So currently, they're looking at combining with some other communities to fund the purchases for the firing range. You know, maybe give access to West Newbury, Georgetown, if they all want to use this firing range to then split up the cost of the materials.
Okay.
But right now, they're looking at some prices to actually get the range up and running. So that is close, and then I guess they'll
Is
be
there a
dealing.
location all picked out already?
To my knowledge, yes, it's
Right.
behind the highway, it's a strip behind the
Oh,
highway
okay,
department.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So can we have just going back, can we have a public comment piece in the agenda, 7 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay. And then I think you have on file, I have it somewhere in the office, but you have on file a printout of what the applicable law is for public comment. That probably should be read out loud. Anytime that someone comes and wants to use the public comment, we want to read out loud, the applicable law.
Nancy
so.
included this in our packet
Yeah.
this evening.
So to,
We have
go-
one more item before we end.
okay, I'm just gonna, on the,
Right.
so at 7 o'clock, what you're saying, if someone wanted to come into our meeting,
Yeah.
they could at 7 o'clock say,
Yeah.
I'm here for this reason.
Exactly.
So if there was 5 or 6 of them, but they wouldn't be able to elaborate on it at that point, or
No,
they
I
would?
think what happens, what we did in the school committee, we gave people 3 minutes.
Okay, that makes sense to me,
Yeah, yeah.
but I wouldn't wanna have
We
5
still
people.
want to encourage people to
Oh, no, I have
go
no
through
problem, I
go through
agree.
the channels to put things on an agenda item.
Yep,
We still, and that public comment is also used for that purpose.
Correct, and if someone comes forward and their issue is more complex or is more
Right.
in-depth, then at that point, it would be
Table.
said,
Tabled.
you need to come to the next meeting as an
We'll
actual
put you on
agenda
the
item.
agenda, exactly.
Need
so.
more time.
okay.
Exactly.
And I do think the board needs to get in the habit of, if people do want to speak, they should identify themselves.
Right, I
Right,
meant
yes, thank you.
Kermit.
So that would be important for a
contingent.
public comment section, that
Sure.
people identify who
Good
they are.
point. Okay, the last item. Hold on to your seatbelts. I'd like to have an agenda item at some point in the future to reactivate the Government Advisory Council. This is the commit, whether it's the same members or not, we might have to reconfigure. I'd like to reactivate the Government Advisory Council for the purpose of studying the feasibility of whether or not we should have a full-time town manager manage our town. I think that that might be an excellent complement with a 5-member board. It's been done in many towns in the surrounding area, Boxford, Hamilton, very successful model for having a town manager with a 5-member board, and I think it's a lot less complicated than the 5-member board study, because we're looking at the job description and where it works, and what problems that could be associated with it, and whether or not that would be right for our town. If we have this committee come back together and study that, then of course we would do some homework and reach out to different towns who actually have successfully implemented that model. I have reached out to legislators to provide us with language of the law, because we would actually have to do similarly as we did with the 5-member board. We have to, first of all, have it approved as a warrant article, then it becomes approved, when it gets voted on town meeting, and then after that, we have to go to the state legislature and have it passed as a law, signed by the governor. And then after that, I'm not sure if we have to vote on it again at the ballot, or we can implement it by just simply bringing the qualifications up and posting for the job. That I'm not sure about, but a little premature. At this point, I'd like to have a discussion with you folks in one of the next 4 meetings as to whether or not that would be a good idea, and whether you would support me on reconvening or reactivating the Government Advisory Council
When did we have a government advisory council?
Well, we worked together for about 14 months. Remember, we had a series of meetings and we
Oh,
were talking
you,
with the
the
five-member
group
board.
that we were part of,
Yeah, so I thought
understand.
that would be the most natural group to
Okay.
get those group, you know, you're on it, I'm on it.
That's GAC.
GAC, we call it the GAC. Let's get
Also-
the GAC back on and give them a new charge.
AKA GAC.
You know, study a town manager. That's my thought.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Is that a home rule petition that went to
Home rule petition,
the
thank you
State House?
for reminding me, that's
okay.
what that's called, exactly.
All right.
We have to, we
Let
have
me-
a right to govern ourselves, but strangely enough, we still have to ask permission from the
So-
state to pass a law, and then they come back at us, and then we go forward. Kind of interesting. Your thoughts, Betty?
I was going to ask you, when you go before the planning board, are you going just to present an idea on your own, or as
Oh,
a
me?
member? Yes.
No, thank you. I'm gonna be attending meetings on a regular basis, just for my own information. I plan on being in the audience and keeping it as quiet as possible. If I'm asked for some, I'm not representing the town, I'm going there just to,
So you're
For
not
my own
speaking
learning.
for
no,
the
no,
Board
no,
of
not
Selectmen?
at all, no,
Okay.
not at all, no. I'm gonna go tomorrow night, I'm gonna go to the Capital Finance Committee meeting. You know, Bill, you probably have noticed this, a lot of things come to this board in a crisis state. So I'm gonna make a commitment towards attending as many meetings as possible in 2015, just so I get at the board and commission level a little bit better understanding as things develop. So by the time they come to us, I'm a little bit more aware. So this way here, I'm getting information from the ground and from the people dealing with the issues, not in any other, format. So I'm gonna attend these meetings because I wanna learn more about the town and how it
Yeah,
works.
I don't have a
and so
problem
forth.
with you attending the meetings, as long as we are not talking about any kind of selectmen type stuff that we've talked about, we shouldn't be talking
No,
about.
of course not.
That's the only thing I ask, and again, if we have had a meeting and we need to have our minutes come back before us, I'd rather not have the minutes take off and go be approved without us, the board,
No, I
We have
agree
to
with you.
approve them.
approve them.
No, I agree with you.
That's all, yeah.
Minutes have to be approved by the
Right,
Board of
right.
Selectmen.
So I don't have a problem if you're looking for knowledge, that's fine with me, hey, I tip my hat to you.
Capital Finance, that's Jeff Pappas's committee, is that right, Joe?
Yes, they're meeting tomorrow night? Is that-
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then, so oftentimes they meet, and they meet many people who come in with, proposals for things they may want in the future. And then they, after they're done all their work and analysis, they're an advisory group, make a
Informed decision.
decision to come before the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And then, so then
With their
we would
proposal.
sit, do you think that this is something that we should be looking at now, or 5 years from now, those kinds of things. So, in the Finance Committee, have they been meeting yet?
No.
Okay, because I think as soon as they start to meet, I'd like them to come in and sit with us, because we do the budget with you and them and us.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to understand, I guess, what kind of type of money you have to work with. I mean, yeah, I saw on TV, the CPA proposals, a lot of good proposals came before CPA and what have you, but, and I know there's a lot of CPA money out there, but, I mean, to get a good idea what kind of money we have and where we're heading, money-wise,
Right.
makes sense.
There's no such thing as free money. Though people like to think there is.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to send, you know what I'm gonna do, Denise? I'm gonna send you the meetings that I think I'm gonna be going to, kind of on a routine and regular basis. This way here, if anybody else on this board is itching to show up at a meeting, we need to know that, so that has to be posted if two of us.
Well, it doesn't have to be posted if you're
As long
just
as we're
going
not
and sitting in the
voting.
audience.
Okay.
You
I
just
think-
you can't undertake any discussion as far as the
Got it.
board,
Right.
but you can attend meetings.
All right, but I'll still send you a list of
Cause
where I
that,
plan on
I was
going.
the meeting that you went to down at the 441 Main Street, I was gonna attend that meeting, but,
Yeah.
it was told to me that it would probably be best I didn't go because you couldn't, there was litigation, number one, number two, you can't say anything anyway. Am I correct when I say, that? You go to those meetings, you can't say anything, you can't
Right, so a
speak.
site visit is, you didn't have to have it as a posted meeting, you can attend a site visit to actually look and view. You can't engage in discussion, you can't vote, but you can listen to his proposal and see what they have.
Okay.
So you could have attended on that.
Well, that was,
Okay, good.
that's all your, proposals out, Joey?
That's it, only
All
three
right.
tonight.
All right, I got a couple things I'd like to go over, minor. We had a letter come before us with a dog issue. Do we have a dog officer?
I think we all got that
Yes,
email.
and I will just say, I mean, without going into it, that's really a non-issue. It was
Right.
really a matter of communication. The police have followed up.
Okay, I'm not talking about that, I'm trying
Okay.
ahead.
We do,
I
it's
have
a
a lady
police
in Groveland.
officer.
I have a lady in Groveland, she's a local vet, and she had come forward and said she may be interested in being a dog officer. And I said to her, I'm not really sure if we have a dog officer. Years ago, we did have a dog officer, and I said I would have to ask at my next meeting, not because of this case, but, if we need a dog officer.
We do have dog officer. We actually have 2 police officers that function in animal control
Okay.
when needed.
So we're all set in that department.
Yes.
Well, then she said she might be interested in running for selectman, so.
Well, tell her to jump in.
Okay, secondly, is I have,
It's a little joke that, our experience with animals would be very helpful.
in the last meeting that,
Yeah.
we met with the building inspector, and I was trying to get to the bottom of a checklist. So we do not have a situation, we have 2 buildings right now in Groveland on the wrong location on a parcel of land, and it's causing a lot of litigation and what have you. I came up with a checklist of what other towns use.
But we need to
That
put
really
this
should
on
be
as
an
a,
agenda item.
it has to be an agenda
All right,
item, yeah.
Okay,
Good. You
Okay,
want to
so
give
that's
that
that.
to Denise then?
so can we put that on for next week's agenda?
2 weeks,
2 weeks, whatever it is?
17th.
So 17, then December 1st, December 15th, December 29th.
So
4
this needs
meetings
to be
left
put
this
on for
year.
an agenda item because
Get a lot of work
Yeah.
done.
it's discussing something.
That the board would have to discuss and vote on.
I wasn't looking for a vote, I was just informational more or less, but that's all right, we can wait. That's it for me.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Joe. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground in 2 hours.
And if we have to meet every Monday, we'll meet every Monday, that's all.
We can get it all done.
Anything else? Nope.
Denise, think we're all set? Should we look at that letter? Do we have to address that this evening?
It's not on the agenda, so you can certainly read it and then come back and
And decide what we're going to do?
Correct.
That's in the other room?
correct.
All right,
I'll have just to let the board know, I'll have the minutes done by Thursday or Friday at the latest. I'll email them to you.
very good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second?
You want to discuss adjourning?
Nope, we're out of here.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, Tracy, thank you.
Bill, do you want
job,
to give
Tracy.
me that so I can
Yep.
include it?
Sure. I'll just give you all the copies.
Okay. So these are from different,
That's from,
oh, this is.